fear through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Ooh, we are chasing the pennant tonight, or some of the group is. I'm laying on an acupuncture mat. I am Shane. I'm fat and out of shape, and I am joined by three significantly more attractive and in shape humans than me. First, I have Sean, who has named this podcast. Sean, how are you, sir?
I'm all right. I'm pretty tired, but I accept all compliments. Thank you. And I've had a really long day of schoolwork, but I'm sure it has not been as bad as Bork's, so you can throw it over to him now.
All right, and then we do have Bork. Bork, the voice of Philadelphia. How are you, sir?
Doing well now. That math exam went pretty well, so I guess it was better than our last test, so a little bit more positive than I was after that. So, and the review was pretty pissed off with that review, as you guys know. But yeah, doing pretty well now and excited to have just easy stuff to finish for the next couple days and then be done with it and graduated. So,
all right, man. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And then we have our West Coast guy who is definitely not a true West Coaster. He is from here, always from here. We have Scott, who is introducing a new bit tonight, and we're excited about it. Scott, how are you?
Pretty good. Excited to unveil this new bit. I have been reading baseball stats for like 2 hours today, so that was fun. And it was the last day of the month at work today, which is always a bit hectic. So I'm ready to unwind and talk to you guys about baseball, and glad to have Joe Bork on the mic. Guys had a crazy schedule lately, so glad he's here.
Lately? As long as I have known you, Bork, you have had the most ridiculous schedule and time constraints of anyone. So it is really nice to have you on the pod, dude.
Thanks. Yeah, school's just, I also am just too nice of a person sometimes too. So I'll be like, yeah, call me if you need help with something. So that happens a lot too for classes.
Bork, I need help with a podcast that you're heavily involved in. If you could please make an appearance, we would appreciate it. Anyway, I am just kidding. Please continue to focus on schoolwork. But we have several bits tonight. We are going to open this thing up with baseball, with sports in general, and how important it's going to be for restoring normalcy, as Biscuit put it on Monday's episode with the first half of the team. Restoring normalcy back into society. It does feel like the sooner that major events such as this start being put back into action, even with different kinds of restraints as to what's going to be allowed. Will there be fans? Will the players as a whole be able to stay in the dugout in baseball's case? All these different things, as we start to see what they're doing at the biggest of scales in terms of sports, we can start to kind of gauge where we're at as a society in terms of how COVID is affecting us. We know that it's, again, mutating. It is honestly horrible, and I'm so tired of reading things about COVID. So I need sports back because I do need to feel some sort of normalcy. What kind of pressure do you think Major League Baseball has in terms of being the first fresh season to start? Obviously, the NBA and the NHL would be coming back mid-season or just straight into the playoffs if they came back at all. It does not seem likely. But what kind of pressure do you think that puts on Major League Baseball to be the first fresh season to start? And how soon do you think they start? And Scott, I'll start over there with you.
You know what? I feel like baseball, as they usually are, has been pretty quiet with all this stuff. I mean, they took a bit more of an L when they got sued, and I think we talked about that a little bit on Sunday, over refusing to refund tickets to people, which was a bad look. But they are coming out more and more with plans, and they are seeming more and more reasonable. So we're getting closer and closer to baseball, but it really is just a giant game of chicken. No major corporation, sports leagues included, wants to be the one that has an outbreak happen and that, God forbid, someone dies. And, number one, they have the lawsuits because that's all corporations care about. Number two, you lost a life. That's what we're all trying to prevent here. So I got to trust that, we're getting close to a solution. And I'm going to imagine that by July, we're going to be watching baseball.
I mean, I would love that. I don't see it happening yet. But I like the optimism there. I mean, it does seem like these different facilities are going to begin to open up all across sports at this point for obviously teams and players and personnel only. But they do seem like they're moving in that type of direction. But Scott, you mentioned it, correctly. Nobody wants to be the first, corporation to rush back and to be the corporation that makes a mistake. Right now, it seems like no matter who comes back first, like you are the test monkey. Like you are out there, and whatever occurs, it's because you chose to come back now. And now everyone else gets to sit there and wait and see how it plays out. And that's what's so hard. And baseball, I don't really trust baseball to do anything right. I feel as though if it were safe to come back, they wouldn't come back. And if it were not safe to come back, they'd say, we're definitely starting tomorrow. So I don't know where you guys are at in terms of your level of trust with reading this thing appropriately. And I mean, honestly, other sports were being canceled and the Phillies are still playing spring training games. Sean, how much do you trust Major League Baseball to sit here and get this thing right?
I mean, I was about to say the same thing, is that, every sport was getting canceled. Basketball canceled the night before Philly spring training game. Hockey got canceled in the morning, and they still went out and played, in Clearwater. So, I mean, I don't not trust them. I think that, they did handle this okay. They're still trying to get it out there, but they're still trying to be cautious. They're trying to come up with any plan possible to get the season going. I mean, a lot of people are skeptical, and even, we bring up the Astros every show, but, how they handled that, they're skeptical of Manfred. They don't really trust him. I think, personally, being an optimistic person, I think that they know what they're doing. They're going to handle this well, but, I mean, who's to say?
Now, obviously, you can't have baseball come back if half the players are not going to agree to come back. We've heard numerous reports of players who are saying it does not matter where they have to play or what types of things occur. They just want to get out on the field. They don't want, I don't remember if it was Andrew or if it was you, Sean. I mix you guys up all the time, apparently, who had sent over the Adam Morgan article. Is that either of you?
Andrew. That was Andrew.
That was Andrew. Okay. Players are concerned about, how a championship for 2020 is going to be viewed, and there are a large portion of players who don't want that asterisk to come behind that eventual 2020 World Series trophy if there happens to be baseball this year. A lot goes into that. So, Boric, how do you kind of take, from a player's perspective, what would be your stance right now? Are you a guy who says, you know what, if you're telling me it's safe to come and play in Citizens Bank Park, I'm lacing it up and I'm ready to go? Or are you still a little cautious?
I would play, but that's just because of the state I'm at in my life right now. Like, I would think I would be like, I still would, even if I was a baseball player, would not be married yet at my age. So I would say, like, because I don't have to worry about much other people other than myself at this point, I would play because I just want to get back and think of it like it's a good morale booster for the country. And I'm also, because of hearing about plans, a little bit more optimistic than you, Shane, because I know with the NHL and stuff, some things I've heard are about July. So I wouldn't be shocked if we could at least get the playoffs in for that. And then basketball, of course, you're hearing reports of some execs might want to cancel, but LeBron and other prominent people came out to debunk that. So who knows where the hell that is. But I'm positive that I'm kind of agree with Scott. I think we'll be back by sometime in July, but I don't know if everyone's going to be playing, and that's a concern if you do the Arizona and Florida thing, because some players I don't think will commit to being away from their families for that long if that's the way it has to be. If you find enough tests where they can bring their families, then I think you just negated the problem right there.
So you bring up two good points in that. First of all, you viewing this as someone who isn't married, doesn't have a family right now. But what do you make of a Zach Wheeler who was expecting a child, with his wife during the season? What would you make if he chose to not play, or a Bryce Harper who just had a child and maybe wants to stay home with little crew? Like, what would you make of your teammates at that juncture if enough of your teammates here in Philadelphia said, nah, man, this ain't for me. Like, I have bigger concerns. Are you angry with your teammates, or do you believe that they're being selfish? Is this something that you would ultimately respect?
No, I wouldn't be angry at all. I would think it's just ultimately each person's decision. And if enough people said, oh, I don't think we should do it, and of course, if they're more veteran in the league than I would be, I would probably go off of their stance at a certain point just because they have more experience with everything, even though this situation is so new. They're just know the league better than I do, obviously. So I would say I would be perfectly fine with it. And at that point, they probably should just not resume, because if you have too many of the stars saying, no, I would rather stay in my family, because we also heard Mike Trout kind of jokingly saying, I don't know if that's a great idea in a couple different interviews now. So I don't know if you're going to want to start a season if you're missing some of the biggest stars of the league and you kind of just have role players filling in for them.
I'd find that incredibly interesting. Who was just about to speak? Was that Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of agree with it. Go ahead. Finish up your thought here.
I was going to change that topic, so if you have something, go for it.
Yeah, all I was going to say is just that they came out the other day with the plan to reopen the state of California. There weren't hard dates tied to anything, but California is, it's the biggest. It's a big state, right? There's a giant population of people here. It's important, and other states are looking in at it. The weirdest thing to me was in phase 3 of the plan, public facilities where people are like somewhat contacted with each other, but not in the terms of like a concert or anything, were brought up. So it was things like gyms or barbershops, nail salons, things that definitely aren't essential, but there's a lot of interaction. If it's going to be deemed safe by the government that I'll be able to go to the gym and sweat next to the overly done up chick in her makeup and extremely tiny shorts and sports bra, where we're definitely going to interact, and she's going to yell at me and possibly slap me for looking at her. We're transferring the virus like there, and there's much more interaction than probably would be for a lot of the guys in baseball that are just going to get quarantined together anyway. Like, I feel okay about this July thing. Or we're just going to get another outbreak and everything's going to get shut down. Really, we don't know.
We don't know. And ultimately, someone is, again, going to have to be that guinea pig. Someone's going to have to be the first to say, hey, we're ready to give this thing a go. I know in several areas of China right now, gyms had reopened and they are already reclosing, in fear of a second wave of this thing. And we should be taking from all of the places who are ahead of us in this time frame and time scale. But ultimately here, in this country, like, someone is going to have to be the first. And Boric had mentioned something else kind of in his part there, that for the country, like, it would mean so much, and I'll take a quote from a movie that was average, but a book that was phenomenal. It's hard to not be romantic about baseball. And
Moneyball. Just watched it the other night.
Well done, sir. And it's true. When we take a look at our sports, and in particular baseball, something that was our, or is our pastime, there is something romantic and something that you just don't know why you need it, but you do in your life. Especially if you're, a huge baseball guy, like all of us are, and anyone listening to the podcast. For this country, I do think that it would be huge. And a huge rallying point, and just something that says, we're going to beat this. We're going to find a way. Like, to this point right now, things haven't restored to any sort of normalcy, almost anywhere in the country. And that leaves a lot of uncertainty. It leaves you to your own thoughts and not definitive decisions of things that, are out of your control. So it's horrifying, and you start going worst case scenario. And which one of your family members are you going to eat first? Like, you don't know. Baseball coming back, or any sport coming back, or something of that type of scale, is going to mean so much for the uplifting of an entire country right now. And I'm concerned that if it doesn't happen, if you guys think it's happening in July, Scott and Boric, I'm concerned, or not concerned, that's the wrong word. I'm curious to see what your mental state would be if it doesn't come back this season, and if we have to go through the remainder of this year without baseball. So for either one of you guys, if it isn't coming back, despite you thinking that things will come back in July, and we do get hit with the second wave, where are you guys going to kind of be at?
I guess I'll go. Oh, you want to go? Go ahead, Scott.
No, you got it, Bork.
I would say I would be pretty. I would be in like a very odd state at that point because I'd be very sad that there would be no sports at that point because if baseball's not coming back, I wouldn't think anything else would come back because that's a lot more contact, obviously. So I would be in a weird state at that point where I would probably go into just watching like every documentary on ESPN Plus and everything that's on.
But I'm not even talking about just like from a sports perspective. I'm talking about just general life. Like right now, it's hard. You get up every single day and you don't know what's not going to be the same again. So, and obviously, look, sports is a huge part in all of our lives, but if you guys are, and I'm not saying that you're both banking on July as that hard date of, yes, baseball's going to return, but there's that tentative thought that's being thrown out there of potential NHL playoffs of, football being back as early as October, and then baseball obviously potentially starting up in July. If it doesn't, like, what does that do for you in terms of your confidence just getting up every single day and doing the same things and hanging on to some kind of hope? And what would it mean if it did in fact come back? Like, what does that do for your psyche?
Well, if it did, it would be really positive. If it doesn't, I already have some days where if I'm not that busy, sometimes I'll just fall asleep in the middle of the day for like 4 or 5 hours.
That's called being in your 20s.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I haven't slept more than like 5 hours a night during this because I don't move, so not expending any energy.
But I would say for me, they talked about a lot of people in media I've heard while listening to some good interviews off of YouTube talk about how they're so routine. Like T-Mac talked about it in one podcast, how like you're used to calling games at this time of year, so it's really weird sitting at home. I always buy the
Must be nice to not be near Ben Davis, though.
I always buy the beginning of the year ticket packages that are cheaper. So my routine, I'm always used to being at games in April and May. So
Sean, don't you do that too?
Yeah. Well, I did this year.
Yeah, so it's really odd not being in the stadium and going back and forth a lot at this time because you're based a lot on routine and you're not getting out as much either. When normally when other stuff's not going on, I'll get out and do stuff, but you can't necessarily do that either. So I would say it would be I'll let you know at that time, but I would say my psyche would be a little bit off definitely if it doesn't come back at all because it's already a little bit off from just being able to only watch a bunch of stuff and eventually shit I don't care about on television. So
yeah, I think the biggest thing for me actually is, and at this point I'm kind of just throwing the chips on the table and just banking on July and getting ready to get crushed a little bit. Because why not? Like, I don't have anything else to gamble on right now.
That's the job of a Philly sports fan, let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
All chips in the middle.
Just stay tuned for just my meltdown episode in July. But the real reason for me, though, is because if baseball starts up, I had a friend whose wedding I was supposed to be at in May. That got canceled. His bachelor party in March. Supposed to be there for March Madness. This canceled that. Had another wedding I'm supposed to go back east for in July. That's canceled. Another wedding I was supposed to go back for in November because all my friends decided to get married the same year. I was mad at them originally. But if we don't get baseball, it's pretty doubtful that a lot of that other stuff in my life is going to be happening. So then my mind will then have to go past like, okay, I can't watch the Phils play, a couple times a week to like, crap. Do I have to wait like a year and a half to like fly back east to see my family? Like, I've been trying to like move in my house to a new apartment. Like, am I just not going to be allowed to do that? Like, just a cascade of thoughts that all start with baseball. So I'll be a wreck, but you guys will enjoy it. It'll be fun.
We're not going to enjoy if you're a wreck, but
I know.
Please.
I mean, you guys, the fans.
Well, that's fair. Yeah. You guys shouldn't, by the way. If you do, you're assholes. But this is therapy hour sometimes. Right now, it certainly feels so as I'm staring at a fan spinning. It's unbelievable. Never do a podcast whilst laying down. This is a miserable experience. My arm is so tired. But regardless, the whole kind of point of this first 15, 20 minutes of this particular episode is the fact that so much does rely or rest on that first corporations, large scale corporation, in this particular case, it's definitely sports for a show like ours, to come back and restore some thought of normalcy, as Biscuit put it earlier in the week. And it's incredibly, incredibly important. And people need that. People need something to feel good about, feel positive. And as Scott said, like if something on such a large scale as Major League Baseball can come back, maybe Scott goes to those weddings, maybe, people do get to go and visit their families that they maybe have not been able to see, and so much more that we don't necessarily dive into, so baseball coming back in July, what that would mean for us here is that we would have content to talk about. We wouldn't have to make shit up all the time. And we'd be angry instead of just randomly confused, because that is what Philadelphia sports fans are all like all the time. But regardless, this is something that we're going to continue to check in on here. And it is interesting sitting here, because Philadelphia is tentatively opening on the 8th, and to hear that you guys over there in California don't necessarily have a hard date, but you have some details. It is interesting to see how all the different areas of the country are handling this. And, I'll be curious to see how, as things begin to be rolled out in that first wave of plans, and how it affects things, and if anything is changing. So keep us in the loop on that, Scott.
Yeah, for sure. We got to get a correspondent down in Georgia, because apparently you can go bowling down there right now. So
I have a correspondent in Georgia. It's Naz.
yeah.
She's a babe. I'll hook you up with her.
Dude, let's get her on the pod. I want to talk to someone that can go bowling right now.
Sure, man. Yeah, I'll call her right now. But I won't do that, because she will answer and she will not stop talking. But I am going to turn it over to you, Scott, to introduce our brand new bit that I am very excited for, and I hope you tell a little bit of the story as to why we are doing this. So, Scott, go ahead, man.
Yeah, so we have been talking about this bit for a little bit. The name of the bit is Don't Shit on Short. And it came from when we were way back in the beginning of this, thinking about, starting a Phillies podcast. And we were brainstorming ideas, and Shane had said, what about Don't Shit on Short? It's apparently something him and, a couple of his buddies had said to each other when they played baseball. And I thought the term was hilarious. I wanted it as the name of the show. But God damn it, Sean is better at naming things than me, and he came up with a better one. So
we're grateful for it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm not complaining by any means. Very little creativity in this brain at times. But the point of it was that Shane had said, what if we made it a segment? So I sat here and, racked my brain, and instead of watching, the 76ers highlights from the 2000 NBA championship for like the 90th time, I decided to get to thinking about, how I could do this bit. So what I decided to do is to take the meaning of it, which is, when someone says don't shit on short, it's when someone makes, an error in the field or having a rough day and everyone's getting on them. And the guy would just yell out, don't shit on short, just saying like, hey, he's had enough already. He's really not that bad. Like, give him a break. So in a game like baseball where there's so many heels, I've decided to take the side of those heels in baseball, and, just kind of like gas them up a little bit, explain why they're not such bad people. With the steroid era and a lot of cheating, I mean, there's just an endless cast of characters. So, maybe once a week or so, we're going to start breaking down just a heel of baseball's past or present, whatever have you. I'd love some input from the fans. So if anyone who is reaching out has anyone they'd like us to go through, I'm going to defend those guys. And we're going to kick it off with one of the bigger heels in baseball, in my opinion, but he's such a big heel that people forgot about him almost, which is weird. But it's Rafael Palmeiro, or as I've been calling him in my head for the last 3 hours, Rafi P. And also Mr. Viagra, because he was an embarrassing Viagra commercial back in the mid-2000s. But when you have a mustache and great hair like that, I mean, Viagra's got to pick you. Yeah, exactly. So a little bit of a backstory on Rafael Palmeiro, four-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glover. Started out on the Cubs. Just kind of an average guy, wasn't exactly crushing it. And then he started really, really just working out hard in the off season, and everything clicked. And, he just started hitting really well. The issue he had with the Cubs was kind of slept with Ryan Sandberg's wife. Didn't look so good for my boy Rafi P. It's hard to defend someone like that. You probably shouldn't step out on your star player's wife, but he did it. So he got traded away. He went to the Rangers. When he was on the Rangers, he kind of got dogged by them. He was, a great player. He was he was someone who was lining up to get paid back in my notes.
98, I want to say.
Yeah. It was 94, his first stint. So he was supposed to get paid at the end of the year, and the Rangers traded him instead. And they signed Will Clark, who I don't even know who that is, which is, kind of proof that it was a mistake. But Palmeiro was traded over to the Orioles, where he's, more notorious for playing for, in my opinion. Signed a 5-year, $30 million deal. And he took it in stride. He started, hitting for average. I mean, he had, over 300 several times. He started taking the long ball into his game. And he's just always a big fitness guy. And then this is kind of where...
By fitness, you mean a needle in the ass, but keep going.
I mean, he did fitness needle in his ass, but like...
that was so corny.
I know, right? But so it all kind of came to a head in 2005. So here we go. This is when things start to get bad. This was actually his second stint with the Orioles. He got traded back to the Rangers for a couple of years there. Signed a huge $50 million deal there. Played for 5 years, and he was just generally crushing it. He played over 1,500 games with the Rangers. He had over 300 home runs with them, almost batting 300. When he went back to the Orioles was when he was such a model player in baseball at that point. He wasn't like the most popular guy, but he was just a good guy known in the league. And Bud Selig had put him on the safety committee for steroids. Because they were coming up as an issue. Stop laughing, Shane. They're coming up as an issue in youth sports and college sports and professional sports. So he was speaking to children about not taking steroids while allegedly taking steroids on the side, because 2005, about, a month fresh off of testifying in front of Congress after Jose Canseco had a book that came out that just completely dimed out everyone playing in baseball. Jose Canseco is a heel I'm never going to defend. I think it's a scummy move to rat on everyone. So if somebody else wants to tackle that, by all means, but I am firmly against them, so I will not agree. There's a screen grab of Rafael Palmeiro saying, "I did not take steroids," and pointing his finger at the judge. And a month later, he tested positive for steroids. He was the first player in the modern era to test positive for steroids. There are a bunch of interviews of him begging and pleading Bud Selig to help him for it. And Bud Selig, cold as ice, just said, "I can't do anything for you. You cheated. Like, take the punishment like a man."
All 10 days of it.
I know, right? It was back before the players union and everything had set these strict ground rules and stuff. Now that the 45-day suspensions that are so common. Palmeiro actually has never admitted to taking the steroids. He's come out publicly several times, and when people say, "Did you take steroids?" he said, "Only God knows," which is not a good way to handle it, in my opinion. You should continue to just deny it. And he's making my argument harder and harder here. But he firmly believes that Miguel Tejada gave him a tainted syringe of B12 that he was fitting into his ass and taking, which is a legal supplement. You're allowed to take B12. There's nothing wrong with it. I highly suggest people take it. It'll keep you healthy during quarantine. Miguel Tejada never really confirmed or denied this, but it was kind of shitty to dime out your teammate. But, hey, there are plenty of tainted supplements now. It's extremely common in sports. It happens all the time in the UFC, and the testing is so much better now that we're able to detect tainted supplements. At that time, testing was not as prevalent. And Rafael Palmeiro actually tested negative in another sample that was taken, which is a little known thing that does not get said very often. but he didn't win his appeal. He had to take the suspension. And then every time he came back to baseball, he was just booed relentlessly and called a liar and a cheater. And it just didn't end well for him in 2005. He had a small contract with the Orioles at that time again. And he just was booed so relentlessly that it was a really sad ending. He didn't have a retirement ceremony. He left the game of baseball in shame. Ended his career with 3,000 hits and over 500 home runs. He's one of only 6 guys to ever do that. He's 13th all time in home runs and 17th all time in RBIs. The case against him is, he cheated on his slept with his buddy's wife, Ryan Sandberg, which, I mean,
Sandy deserved it.
Yeah, Sandberg's kind of a jerk. So we'll forgive that one. Miguel Tejada gave him a tainted syringe. I think I weirdly believe Palmeiro. I know he's angry about it, but I do not believe he did take the steroids. He's just a very fit guy. There's a video of him. He came back and played in 2015 for a little bit in an independent league game. Didn't really do good or bad. With his kid. That's why he did it. I mean, he's in his 50s now, and he's taking swings and still is just in phenomenal shape. So either he's actually juicing now or he's just stayed in good shape. He's an all-around he always was kind of a class act, minus the 1 or 2 pretty big slumps there. But I'm backing Rafael Palmeiro. I think he did a lot for the Orioles organization. He got dogged by the Rangers. And my rationale behind why, if he did do the steroids, I had to prepare this, because who knows, knowing my luck, in about a week, something will come out that says, where he admits to taking the steroids. It's actually the Texas Rangers' fault why he took them. And think about the revenge body that hot chicks get when their boyfriend dumps them.
No.
Yep. They need to work out. They need to improve themselves. And Rafael Palmeiro went to the steroids, which is a class 3 supplement, which is illegal in the U.S. So he should be able to sue the Texas Rangers for compelling him to take steroids, for wronging him all along. And he should be allowed into the Hall of Fame. End rant, microphone dropped.
I legitimately envisioned you pacing back and forth in your room right now whilst doing that and actually dropping a microphone or a pillow or whatever's in your hand.
I did do that, and I dropped this toy that I hold in my hands because I'm very fidgety. So.
Oh, there you go. You're wrong, but it's hard, man, because so much of what he's accused of doing, I don't really care. To me, I have such a negative opinion of Ryan Sandberg from the way that he exited Philadelphia as a manager. Drove me crazy. So to me, I don't really care what he did to Sandberg's wife, though it is shit. And that is something that happens all across sports. Look in Philadelphia alone. I mean, there was the Chase Utley and Jason Worth thing that potentially happened. There was the Jeff Carter thing that happened. It happens. These guys live a lifestyle that we could never dream of. It just is what it is. Not that it makes it right, but it is what it is. So I don't care about the Ryan Sandberg thing. I don't care about the Viagra commercial. People got to make extra money. It is what it is. Everyone needs a little assistance now and again. Apparently he just wanted to advertise it. That's fine. I don't care if he took steroids. What I do care about is exactly what you said about Canseco. He fucking dimes someone out. And he dimes out Tejada, who I think at the time was 29. I guess he wasn't young in the league. I think he'd been in the league for 8 years. But still, come on now. Don't dime out your teammate. Tejada was going to test positive eventually anyway. But don't be the guy that did that. That you cannot do. So I'm sorry, man. The guy can't go to the Hall of Fame. It just can't happen. You can't do what he did and go into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the sad part about it too is this was going to be his last year to potentially be eligible for the ballot, and he's going to get. It was projected he was going to get less than 5% of the votes, so he truly never will go to the Hall of Fame. So it's just a very sad kind of sob story. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
Are you against Bonds and Clemens getting in too, Shane?
So
Not to
partially
change the
not.
subject, but okay.
No. It's a good question because they did the same thing. I don't know, man. I think that might be a different case. Might
Why?
be.
Why is that a different case?
Specifically because I do genuinely believe that Barry Bonds is one of the greatest overall players of baseball ever to play this game and would have been in the Hall of Fame without steroids, hands down, ever. I mean, the guy was stealing 30 bags a year, hitting 30 home runs a year when both of those things were not normally tied together. Like he was playing a level and a style of baseball that wasn't present for another nearly 2 decades. He was truly a freak. And he was doing that without steroids initially. And then the end of the career happens and it is what it is. But he does dime out people. He is kind of a scumbag. So I don't know. Like that's what's different. Because I do genuinely, like I believe that Palmeiro used steroids long before what has come about. I don't believe he's just a thick guy. So I'm not sure about that. I also love Barry Bonds, which is very different. Good question, though.
I mean, you still got to go out, in my opinion, like you still have to go out there and do it. And I mean, obviously I'm anti-steroids. Like I don't want to see it in the game. I want everybody to be clean. I think anybody that uses steroids is kind of, you taint your entire career, but like you still got to go out there and do it. And for as long as all of these guys did it, I think that they all kind of belong in the Hall of Fame. Bonds, Clemens, Palmeiro. I mean, like Scott said, he's one of 6 players in the 500 home runs, 3,000 hits category. Like that's not an easy thing to do. You're one of 6 people in almost 150 years of history. Like you're, in my opinion, he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Man.
Yeah, the character thing is an interesting one. I have a hard time when people try to use character to justify for the Hall of Fame, but at the same time, someone like a Barry Bonds who wasn't the greatest guy, or a Roger Clemens who I think is one of the best pitchers of all time, is just a real shithead of a dude. I don't know, man. I think it's all about what happened on the field.
But it's the Hall of Fame. Like you obviously need the stats to get in there, but I do believe that it isn't called the Hall of Stats. It is truly called the Hall of Fame, and how iconic you are to your era of baseball and how the entire picture of you holds up against the other guys on that ballot. So if you're borderline, but you had a kick-ass player's personality that everyone dug you, fans dug you, you were a popular dude, you're going to get in. Versus a guy who was a Roger Clemens, real shithead, but definitely had the stats to get in. Maybe they don't get in. Like, it's a fine line. I do believe that the way that Hall of Fame and voting happens and all that goes into it isn't necessarily fair, but so long as it is called the Hall of Fame, in some respect, you have to take the entire picture of someone. And to me, I don't give a shit that Palmeiro did steroids. I don't give a shit that any of them did steroids. What I give a shit about is genuinely just trying to save yourself by diming out a teammate, a 28, 29-year-old kid. Like, I just don't, that's what I can't get behind. In Palmeiro's case, other people's, if you do steroids, Sean, you're right. You still got to execute. You still got to go out there and hit the baseball. You still got to go out there and touch black and not find the ball over the plate. Like, you still have to execute those things. But at the end of the day, the Hall of Fame thing, it's about your status as a player, as a person, and the stats that come along with it.
Exactly. Like, I mean, in that same kind of caliber, what you're saying is another controversial one on the ballot this year is Kurt Schilling. Like, and I don't mean to change the subject again because this is don't shit on short, but I think the reason he's not in the Hall of Fame right now is because of his character, because of some of the things he said publicly.
Of course,
especially after his damn career.
He is an idiot.
Yeah. So I think whether I feel that way or not, it's human nature. Whether someone's stats are unbelievable, you're not going to root for them to achieve one of the highest awards in your sport if you don't like them as a person. So whatever I feel, it's not true. I mean, I'm sure there are some writers out there that try to do it strictly on the stats, but they would be lying if they told you, it wasn't just a character thing.
I was going to say, though, the reason I'm not sure if I kind of am more leaning towards saying that I wouldn't put him in because he dined people out and all the other stuff. But the reason that maybe he should be in is if you look at the article I read today, Bud Selig had a couple quotes in it, and he knew he was already getting tested for the steroids and they were on the case. And he still took out a full-page ad in USA Today saying, "Congrats, Ralphie, you never cease to amaze us," and obviously a bunch of other crap after that. And then he called him to beg for it, but he said basically, he shit on me. I can't do anything for you. After the suspension, I'll be here for you. Everything you need, though. So basically, Bud Selig had shown how much before everything came out he loved Palmeiro, and was the commissioner up until recently with a lot of power.
Of course. He's one of the most marketable players in the game at that time.
Oh, yeah, but he's also the guy at times until recently didn't seem to care much about the steroid era because it was good for marketability of the game until all the shit came out in the later 2000s. Therefore, from those quotes, he probably should at least get higher voting, because if you have the commissioner even saying after it comes out, saying, "I still got your back no matter what," after the suspension, that says something to me that it seems like some people just don't respect Bud Selig then in that case that do the voting, because that should have some way if the commissioner...
Manfred was arguably more involved in the steroid era than him, but that's fine.
The most heartbreaking thing that I had saw that came out of this, because like I said, I've been reading stories about Rafael Palmeiro that I didn't quite know until the last couple of days. There was a report that, Rafael Palmeiro in his late 40s, early 50s was at a game, his son's game. He was sitting in the dugout and his son went deep and someone from the crowd yelled, "He must be on steroids like his dad." And Rafael Palmeiro stepped up to try to fight the dude. And Palmeiro's a big guy. People had to pull him back. And, his wife stepped up and yelled at him. That's the shitty thing. I think those are the things that make me have a hard time, defending Rafael Palmeiro, because his
Don't
kids are
worry,
suffering.
For the guys who were supposed to argue, they supported you. Sean and Boric.
But I do. Like I said, I don't know if he did the steroids or not. If he did, it would be much better if he just admitted it. However, I'm still in his corner, and Rafael, I'm probably gonna try to hit up your company Viagra when I'm 60 years old, because I'm sure I'll need it too. So I appreciate you for breaking down those barriers.
Well, I was gonna say I was saying from what a guy that has a lot of weight in the game basically said he still supported him. I thought that would have more magnitude voting. If I myself had a vote, there's no chance in hell I would vote for him. I'm just saying Bud Selig still quoting basically, "I support you" after the suspension. And taking out a full-page ad knowing he damn well was probably going to be suspended a few weeks or a month later, that should have more weight to me. That's all I was saying. But in my own take, I would not vote for him.
Which is crazy because he got he's the first player to test positive for steroids, right? He's the first player to have cheated in that sense on record, right? That's the same. That would be the same thing as Manfred coming out and supporting the Astros for stealing signs. That's just abstract. A player cheated in your sport for the first time ever in a specific way, and you come out and support them. I didn't know about this until you said it, but that's the same thing. That's like a team cheats and the commissioner comes out and supports it. There's no way to. That's not
Well, there was all theories, that he had essentially brought these things into the game on purpose because the game was dying. The game was slowing down and it wasn't holding people's attention. And suddenly you do have, the marketability of a Mark McGwire and a Sammy Sosa or a Palmeiro. You have Brady Anderson, who out of nowhere hits 50-some home runs. Guy never hit more than 14. You have all these different things that happen that people have to now turn on the TV because you never know what you're going to see. You don't know who the next guy is that's going to walk out here that had never eclipsed 10, 12 home runs, who's going to pop 40 or 50. It became must-see TV again. It was so good for the game. So you shouldn't be punishing people for steroids. But what you should punish them for is diming out a 28-year-old Miguel Tejada. That really pisses me off, man. I also loved Miguel Tejada. Pretty sure the Phillies drafted his kid.
me look it up. I'm not sure if they did.
Go for it. I don't know. It's just random thought.
I don't think I was born yet, so I couldn't attest to this.
Miguel
Miguel
Tejada was
Tejada?
awesome. Yeah.
Miguel Tejada was great. Miguel Tejada's kid got drafted like 4 years ago.
Wow.
Seriously? Wow.
I'm
He
pretty sure.
he started out as the A's, so
Yeah.
he didn't get drafted by the Phils. I don't know why. I thought he might have as well, but yeah. I mean, he used to fucking rake. Like he was definitely juicing, but he raked.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And he was impressive because I'm pretty sure he put together 5 or 6 straight seasons where I think he only missed like 2 regular season games combined. That's fucking impressive for a guy who was on steroids. Your body breaks down and can't withstand some of that shit. That was impressive. But nevertheless, what's up?
I think you might be thinking of, I believe we're the ones that signed his 17-year-old son. You might be thinking about that.
Signed his kid. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So
Signed, drafted.
that might be why you mixed up.
Oh, yeah. Fernando Tatis' kid goes to the Padres. Vladimir Guerrero's kid goes to the Blue Jays and breaks. And then we get Miguel Tejada's kid.
We always get the kid or the brother that blows.
Yeah.
It always happens.
Well, wait a minute. How do we know Miguel Tejada's son blows? He's only 18, isn't he?
At 18, you started hearing about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Fernando Tatis Jr. I mean, we haven't heard shit from this kid. He should be a top prospect. Right?
I think he got signed last year, so we also haven't played.
Well, we should be hearing more about him then.
I don't know, man.
For Christ's sake, I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see what happens, man. But anyway, so Scott, do you have anything else on the adult shit on short, man?
No, it was a fun little project. I'm hoping that we'll get a little more interactive as this goes on. And like I said, if anyone sitting, listening, watching has anyone that they want us to delve in deep on, I'll do it. The only person I won't is Jose Canseco because he sucks.
What about
I was just gonna say A-Rod.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
I have already said that I kind of hate A-Rod too, so I don't know if I can go back on that. But I would entertain the idea.
All
It would
right.
be a true lawyer's effort here, just playing the game. But
I do still think eventually we need to do that. By the way, we do need to have like a legitimate like court case as one of our shows, a mock trial. I think that'd be hilarious.
That'd be awesome. I would love that.
Yeah, that would be
That'd be
pretty swell. But yeah, so that was Don't Shit on Short. It's going to be a bit that, like Scott said, we'll bring to you guys once a week. It will be eventually more interactive. This was kind of a spur of the moment type of thing, where I think me and Scott were the only two that knew what this bit was going to be about, which makes sense because Scott and I texted about it outside of the group chat, which is moronic now that I think about it. But it will be fun. We're going to have a bunch of different guys, or characters, as Scott was calling them, come up that we're going to try like hell to defend. But I'm going to turn this one over to Sean for the uniform bracket. But before we do entirely, I do need to tell you guys that I am posing a challenge that I need your ruling on after Sean introduces the championship matchup for the uniform bracket. So Sean, go ahead.
All right. Well, while we're on the topic of, rulings and lawyer speak, we have a dispute on our last podcast's choices for the uniform bracket for the championship. I have not gotten a chance to listen to it as I've been busy the last 2 days with class and all that. But according to Shane, Rob, who chose the Phillies over the Athletics, the two teams in the championship, Rob's reasoning for picking the Phillies was that the overall uniforms for the Phillies over the years have been better, but he says that the Athletics are, and as Shane quoted, the sickest uniform, the throwback yellows or greens. What was it?
Throwback greens, and I actually think he used the word sexiest. I can't remember. It was something dumb.
So according to Rob and according to our rules for this uniform bracket, we're supposed to be pinning the top uniform of one team in our own opinions against the top uniform of another team. And so as of right now, the Phillies are up 3-0 over the Athletics. The other podcast all were in agreement of this, but apparently we might be disputing it. We will have the results to you on this Sunday's pod. So as of right now, we're going to act like it's 3-0 Phillies.
Just
But-
fucking wrecked.
It might be 2-1, and we'll come to that ruling before Sunday's podcast. So,
I think you should come to the ruling here. I'd like to hear Scott and Borg. Actually, I'd like to hear all three of your opinions on this.
I agree. It should be 2-1, but
Yeah,
I will
I
throw
agree.
tickets.
I agree, because you can't really say something's either the sickest or the sexiest and then say, oh, well, the other thing I think is better still, though.
I just love the phrasing. The phrasing was brilliant. Rob literally sat there and said, the throwback green is the sexiest jersey in baseball, but for the depth of the uniforms the Phillies provide in their history, I gotta go with the Phillies. In a contest that is specific to the best jersey versus the best jersey. Unbelievable. It's 2-1.
All right, then
That's where we're at.
we are swinging Rob's vote over to the Athletics.
Damn right we are.
And we may crown a championship tonight. Shane, I'm going
Talk
to start
dirty
it
to
with,
me.
Shane, start us off.
We've come this far, baby. It's the Athletics. I have spoken this into existence. I have gotten our first challenge overruled on a bracket. I'm feeling it, man. I'm in. This is the Athletics. White uniforms, all white uniforms with the white cleats. Scott's going to double this one with the black hat. Keep it going, Scott.
Yeah, black hat, best hat in baseball. Get the champagne ready. They're pulling it out. They're bringing it into the locker rooms. We've got Miguel Tejadas throwing on the goggles and shit. This is getting awesome.
Boric, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I went on the Heritage Sports website, which shows all the jerseys, the history of each thing, to really examine it today. I kind of pulled a you, Sean, and looked into all of them.
Yeah, you did.
We only have a couple left, and I love how it came down to the two, a former Philly team and our Philly team. So no matter what, I'm still a true Philadelphian. If I pick one,
You shut the hell up. Just pick the right jersey.
Don't be biased here.
I'm picking the original Philadelphia teams. That doesn't make me any less Philadelphian, because I like the A's old throwback greens, and I like their old throwback when it has the yellow and green as well. The ones from either the 69 or 70, 72 as well, and then the later greens. So I'm still going to go with the A's, which is the original Philadelphia.
Killing it.
Well, thank God I didn't have to give my vote, because I didn't even circle. I was thinking about it all day. There was no, I just was hoping this wouldn't come down to me, because I try to be unbiased and go against Shane, who threatens to kill me if I don't pick the Athletics. But at the same time, I love some of the old Phillies uniforms, and it's not even a bias thing. It's that I've said from the beginning of this bracket that I was never really a fan of the green and yellow of the Athletics. And so I'm glad I don't have to pick, because I truly didn't pick for either of these. The Athletics have pulled it out. So congrats to the Athletics. Congrats to Shane and everybody else. Scott.
Everybody's welcome.
And screw the other pod.
We're all one pod.
It was
by the
close
way.
for me.
Yeah.
I just ended up. That's why I had to really examine it, because it was close as shit for me.
Yeah, this is a tough one. So I'm glad I don't have to vote.
Yeah, 'cause I told Andrew on the phone yesterday I would probably vote Phillies, and I looked at all the jerseys today, and I'm like, I actually like these certain A's jerseys, and the depth of the A's maybe a little bit more.
God damn it, Borg.
That's what happened when I look back in history, and I really looked at the throwback green and yellows back, like Dennis Eckersley days, and they were so nice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Feels
So-
so damn good.
Yeah, Athletics win, and I'll throw this one back to you, Shane, for your challenge.
I'm just glad that at this point, I didn't have to jump up in anger, because I'm stuck to this acupuncture mat right now. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get up. So thank you to everyone who voted for the Oakland Athletics in this. You're all fucking great. That makes my damn night. We are going to...
I
What's
just
up?
wanted to point out, though, too, the A's, when I was looking through jerseys, if we're talking about old school pinstripes, they actually have a jersey, if you go way back, that is
the
also
wide set
old
pin.
school. Yeah, an old school pinstripe jersey I thought was pretty cool as well, since that's how we talked about moving the Yankees and Phillies along a lot, because we're the two old school pinstripe. The A's have a cool jersey if people want to check that out as well.
You're damn right they do. You're goddamn right. Oakland Athletics, speaking it into existence. Man, that feels good. I never win brackets of anything. This is lovely. But last week we ended our pod. We did a 1-for-1 AMA with each other. We all kind of had different questions. Some were baseball, some were not. For another co-host who was on this show. Was it the same set of 4 last week, by the way?
I think it was. Actually.
It might have been, yeah.
That's impressive. All right. Well, we're definitely the A team. So this week we are going to shift it a little bit. I had posed for Sean well, let's take it back just a half second. Scott had wanted Sean, because of the amount of research he went through in order to make the incorrect assessment anyway on his jersey pick 2 rounds ago, that it would be funny if he went through a baseball documentary and gave like an old school, like high school, junior high type of book report on it. We're going to give you the Cliff Notes versions when we actually distribute these. However, I selected the documentary that Sean is going to watch, and it is going to be Screwball, and it works very well in line with that of Scott's Don't Shit on Short Topic for the evening. This is about the steroid era, and it is, when you watch the first 3 minutes of this, I guarantee you're going to sit there, and well, now you won't because I'm telling you about it, but you would have pressed pause, backed out of it, and been, did I select the correct thing? Because it opens up with kids, like little humans, with fake like mustaches and like hair pieces, pretending to be adults, doing awkward voiceovers. Weirdest shit I have ever seen. You don't know why you keep watching this thing, because it is not overly well done, but it is pretty interesting. It is pretty damning for one Aaron Rodriguez. Holy shit, boys. Stared at this fan a little too long. Alex Rodriguez and Manfred. And then you're 100% going to want to just stab the main person in it, and I won't tell you who it is yet. But it is a super interesting documentary. It's weird as hell because these kids make continued appearances pretending to be grown humans as opposed to tiny ones. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm super looking forward to your book report on this, the Cliff Notes versions on Sunday. But we are each going to give each other one at this point, except for me. Boric is not going to give me one because I don't miss out on shit because I'm a person. So, Sean, I believe you have one for Scott, correct?
Yes. So,
Take
and this is one we've talked about, me and Shane, multiple times in previous podcasts. But the movie Bull Durham, which is some regarded as the best baseball movie, definitely better than Field of Dreams. Field
of Dreams.
So I'm challenging Scott, who, as he also said in a previous podcast, isn't a big movie guy, to watch Bull Durham, because you can't be on a baseball podcast and not have seen Bull Durham. And I learned that, the hard way. So since
I've literally threatened
it. Since the beginning of this podcast, I've seen it now 3 times since I've started. So I am now, as Shane would call me, a person. So Scott, join us all and
become a person.
And become a person.
And watch for the best. Become your cocaine.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
All right, Scott, you have one for Bork?
I do. We're going to take it over to ESPN and recommend the 30 for 30. It's called Doc and Darryl. It's about Dwight Gooden and Darryl Strawberry and the 94 Mets, whatever season it was, if that's what I'm saying correctly. Regardless, it's when the Mets were running baseball and Darryl Strawberry was unbelievable and Dwight Gooden was unbelievable, but they were both doing copious amounts of drugs the whole time. It's a sad, touching tale, and you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, that's why I brought up cocaine before you went into that.
Put it together. So next, or on Sunday, we think it's going to be, each of the 3 of them will have their Cliff Notes prepared for each of those films or documentaries. I'm excited to hear about them. And again, I don't miss things, so I'm just going to kind of be involved in it. Maybe I'll just usher it. I don't know. We'll see how it plays. But I am looking forward to it. So tonight, it was good to talk about one, kind of the state of sports. As we were on here, we got something from NHL believing that they will be able to come back in August. And that just sounds bizarre to me. Summer hockey sounds, honestly, like better than sex. I'm in. So maybe I feel a little bit better about this July thing. Maybe I'm going to be preparing for the disappointment that Scott's preparing for, and we'll both just have a real somber podcast. It'll be fine. Then we were able to sit here. We were able to usher in the new bit on Don't Shit on Short. We correctly picked the Oakland Athletics as your champion for the uniform bracket, the best uniform versus best uniform. That's the way that we discussed it beforehand, Rob. So that was awesome. That was a personal win for me. I dug it. And then we were able to sit here and go through some movies and documentaries. So I'm excited to see what we all kind of come up with. But before we sign out of this one, I want to remind you guys to, if you are local to the Bucks County area, check into Just Food, visit our guy, Asian Rob. Man, it is hard to talk while slaying. Visit our guy, Asian Rob. There we go. At Just Food. It's 215-794-FOOD, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself. Take it home. I just went over there and I felt like I was like at what are those medieval things called? Renaissance Fair. I was like, just give me a turkey leg. And it was not a normal size turkey leg. And it was absolutely fucking delicious. So definitely go over there, get whatever you want. I still love to just go over and say, pick your best thing in the menu today, throw it in a box, and I'll pay you for it. And then you just walk out, and it's lovely. So I highly recommend that. You can also go to the Del Valle Market where they do have, regularly prepared meals there for you, as well as fresh everything else. It's wonderful. And then make sure you also, if you enjoy Celtic music, or if you don't and you know someone that may, pass along the information of the Jackdaws. They are sending me, we think by the end of the weekend, what may be our new intro outro music, and I'm super excited about it. But they are phenomenal, and they're excellent people. So it would mean a lot to me, it would mean a lot to them if you shared their content and continue to expose them. They are awesome people and good music. But any final thoughts for this pod before we do sign off? If you don't have a final thought, just tell everyone where they can find you on Twitter. Scott, I'm going to start with you.
Hi, you can find me at spnovic on Twitter. Don't really have anything else to say. It's getting to the end of the week. I'm dragging along here. I've got no creative juices left in this brain. So, I'll see you guys on Sunday.
All right, Bork, where can people find you? And if you have a final thought, please feel free.
Yeah. I would just say I definitely like that we heard about the NHL possibly coming back in August. That definitely makes Scott and I July timeline seem more likely. So just remain positive and well, everyone. And on Twitter, you can find me at JJBoric26. And then Andrew and I, the other podcast we do, our Twitter is at @true_Philly Sport as well. So those are the two places to find me on Twitter. And feel free to DM at any time to talk about sports or whatever the hell you want to talk about.
All right, and then Sean, where can we find you, and any final thoughts you may have?
Only final thought I have is seconding what Bork said. Stay positive, stay optimistic like me. We're going to watch baseball this year. We're going to watch hockey playoffs. We're going to watch NBA playoffs, and we're going to watch football on time. And I could be completely wrong. So follow me at Twitter to tell me I'm wrong when it happens at SeanNew27, SeanNew27, and stay healthy.
I'm just genuinely shocked that neither Boric nor Biscuit, because neither one of them would make sense for it, have said, when I said, where can people find you, one of them just starts saying Into Club. It would be hilarious to me if either of those two voices presented that line from that song. And I think one of you needs to make it happen eventually, just to make me chuckle. I think it'd be amazing. But you guys can find me on Twitter. I will almost sometimes use it. It is at Shane_Mead. You can find the podcast network on Twitter. It is at AMY Podcast. And then Sean, did you give our CTP one?
No, you can follow our Chasing the Pennant podcast Twitter account at ANYP Phillies.
That you can. And we chased the pennant tonight, and we brought it back in green and gold and white cleats. It was lovely. We are Chasing the Pennant podcast of the Always Next Year podcast network, and we will see you guys on Sunday with the full team. You guys take care.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me solid through and through, danced a jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.